Hey everybody, how's it going? In today's video, let's compare the specs on the new 2024 season Formula One cars and come up with some strategy. Currently, of course, in the current version of the game, we have Singapore Marina Bay Grand Prix and the Monza, the Italian Grand Prix. So two very different type of circuit, right? So Monza, of course, the cathedral of speed, right? So top speed is gonna play a bigger role there than, let's say, I mean, obviously grip and braking distance is fine, but not gonna play as great of a role, right? As opposed to, let's say, Marina Bay, Singapore Grand Prix. Top speed on Singapore is not going to play as big of a role. However, your acceleration and grip, or perhaps grip and braking distance, might play a bigger role. I mean, obviously, they're not completely isolated specs, but in terms of what might make a particular event go a little bit smoother than others, or if you want more challenge for a particular circuit, maybe you can pick lower spec cars to, kind of like, because essentially you have to compensate, right? If your car is not as forgiving because its spec is lower, let's say like cars with a lower grip, you have to be more precise with your cornering versus cars with a higher grip where you're a little bit more, the car will kind of forgive you more if you're not as precise, right? So with that being said, the 2024 roster, top rank across the board on every spec, Red Bull Ring RB20. No one touches it. Yes, it's got the highest top speed. It starts at 320 kph, as you can see here. When it's maxed out, it goes up to 391 kph. But for the current special event to win this car, basically you need 5 upgrades across the board, and that's gonna bring this car's top speed up to 370 kph, which is still the fastest in the group with the same amount of upgrades on, right? And then acceleration, yes, it's got 2 seconds to start off at the base PR. It will get up to 1.74 seconds at the max, which is the fastest one. And even with the 5 upgrades across the board for the event, it still gives you the fastest acceleration, 1.82. Braking distance, also the shortest, the best, right? Starts at 15.5 meters for stock. And as you put those 5 upgrades on the brakes, it comes down to 14.3 meters. And if you max it out, get all 7, then it's down to 13.7 meters, which is that's insane. I mean, from 100 to 0? Yikes. Yes, better wear neck braces, Anywho, and then the grip, of course, the perhaps one spec that contributes more to your PR than any other spec. Yes, it has the highest base PR grip of 2.95 G, and it maxes out at 3.38. And with the 5 upgrades on across the board for the event, the grip does go up to 3.25, which is the top rank. And PR requirement for the special events is going to be 130.8 for Red Bull Racing here. Same with the Ferrari, by the way. Those two are the top 2-tier cars, or top 2-tier teams, right? With the Red Bull edging just ever so slightly ahead of Ferrari, because let's see, let's go find Ferrari. Where are you? There we are. So as you can see, the top speed, it starts out a little bit slower. Remember, Red Bull Racing started at 320 base PR, or base spec. This one starts at 317. When you max it out, it's still gonna be like a couple of kph slower than the Red Bull coming in at 389 kph when it's maxed out. But for this event PR, it'll go up to 368, so still 2 kph below Red Bull Racing. And the acceleration, it's not bad, comparable. 2.02 seconds, right? So compared to 2 seconds even for Red Bull Racing. So 0.02 of a second slower. I know. Is that going to be really noticeable? I doubt it. And when you max it out, it does bring it down to 1.75 seconds. So it even gets closer to 1.74 second the Red Bull Racing has, right? And when you have the enough upgrades to complete this event, the special events, it will be at 1.83 seconds. So that's only 1/100th of a second behind Red Bull. So in-game playing wise, feel wise, I don't know if it's going to be all that noticeable. And the grip wise, they are identical. They start at 2.95 G, maxes out at 3.38 G, and with the event PR, you get 3.25 G. So they have the base PR is like 0.1 PR lower than Red Bull Racing. But for the event and when you max it out, they are identical. They both top out at 136.8. And for the event, both are going to hit 130.8. So those are the top 2 tier best cars. Now, my strategy for the 2024 season is not using the best cars for the... I mean, maybe I might use Ferrari for the Singapore, simply because that's going to be a more challenging Grand Prix than, let's say, the Italian Grand Prix. Italian Grand Prix, you probably want to pick a car with maybe higher top speed. I don't expect it to be too difficult. So the top speed wise, obviously, Red Bull Racing is going to be across the board the fastest, best car across the board. So assuming that we are going to be presented in the future updates with Monaco, which is by far the toughest Formula One circuit in the game, I would spare the best car for that circuit, which means Red Bull Racing, I won't race it until I have to race for the Monaco Grand Prix, right? Because that one, you need the best grip, best acceleration, best braking distance, which Red Bull Ring pretty much has you covered, right? Red Bull Racing, yes, right? And maybe for Singapore, which is, I would say, probably like second toughest circuit in the game for Formula One, maybe Ferrari is a good choice because it is, fairly comparable. And then for maybe like if we have Belgian Grand Prix where we have a long straights where top speed actually will come into play a role. But other than that, I don't think like you necessarily need the fastest acceleration or best grip there. I mean, obviously it helps, but not as crucially, right? So in that case, then maybe some lower tier cars you can use for those events. So let's see. So Italian Grand Prix, top speed will help. So if you decide you're not going to use Red Bull Racing and Ferrari for that, then the next best car is going to be your McLaren. Where's McLaren? Where are you? There we are. Coming in with the top speed base, starting out at 319 kph. So that base PR top speed actually is the second fastest in the whole group. And when you max it out, it does go up to 389. So it essentially matches, it gets tied up with the Ferrari, just 2 kph slower than the top Red Bull Racing. And with the event PR, you will get up to 368 kph top speed. So that's going to be, once again, same as Ferrari. So that's the second fastest top speed car. So either for the Cathedral of Speed, Monza, or Spa, both circuits, I would say McLaren would be a good candidate to run. Now, what brings McLaren below the top tier Red Bull Racing and Ferrari? Well, acceleration is not quite as good. It's not even the second best. Actually, it's there are like 4 different categories for the acceleration across all 10 teams, right? And both Mercedes and McLaren, which kind of has they fall in the same PR group, but they both have kind of a lower on the acceleration. So as you can see, the 2.04 seconds to start off at base PR. When it's maxed out, it goes up to 1.75. So when it's maxed out, it does fare okay. But when you have less upgrades on, let's say for the event, your acceleration is going to be 1.84 seconds. So that's 200ths of a second slower than Red Bull Racing and 100th of a second slower than Ferrari. Will they make a big difference? I don't know. Probably not, but maybe it's a little bit more, it'll be a little bit more noticeable against Red Bull Racing, right? And then where McLaren comes out ahead of, let's say, Mercedes, it's going to be in the braking distance. It does fare better, and the top speed. Now, the grip-wise, when they're maxed out, both Mercedes and McLaren, they do top out at 3.37 G. Mercedes does start out at 2.96 G as opposed to 2.95 G that we're looking at for McLaren here. And also with the event PR, Mercedes will have 0.01 G higher, 3.25 G compared to McLaren's 3.24 G. So McLaren perhaps better for speed event than the Mercedes. Mercedes perhaps slightly better suited for more of a technical circuit with more sharp corners, right? But not quite as good as Ferrari and Red Bull. Those are just entirely separate category of cars, right? So sort of like a upper mid tier teams, right? McLaren and Mercedes. So let's see. And then braking distance, Mercedes, it's okay. Should we go to Mercedes? I think we passed it by, didn't we? Yes. So yeah, Mercedes is okay. It does have one of the best grip. So it's gonna be a gripper. So perhaps, but the acceleration is where it gets held back. So, but still, not a bad car. So now let's have a look at the sort of the mid-range cars. Like we got Aston Martin. Did we go past Aston Martin? I don't think we did. There it is. So Aston Martin AMR24. All right, so this car has really good acceleration. Surprisingly, where it suffers is it's got lower grip, so braking distance isn't bad. So, like once again, Aston Martin may not be a bad candidate for racing at, let's say, once again, circuits like Monaco or Singapore, right? Might be a little bit more challenging than, say, racing Mercedes or McLaren. But yeah, Mercedes perhaps would be reasonably good for either Monaco or Singapore as well, but it just has the acceleration isn't as good. But if you're not too concerned about the grip, but you're more concerned about acceleration, then Aston Martin is your car, is your racer. So top speed isn't as good. It's kind of middle of the road. Starts at 315 kph, and when maxed out, it tops out at 388 kph. And with the event PR, you top out at 366 kph, which is the one that I think is gonna be one that matters the most for most players. And then acceleration, as I said, it matches Red Bull Racing. It starts at 2 seconds. And as you put more upgrades on with the event PR, it matches once again Red Bull Racing, 1.82 seconds. And when it's maxed out, 1.75 seconds. So, okay, fine. 1/100th of a second slower than Red Bull when it's maxed out. But, you know, for the event that we're running, it's gonna be competitive, right? And the braking distance starts out at 15.8 meters, and when it's maxed out, it's 13.7 meters. So that's essentially comparable to Red Bull Ring or Red Bull Racing once again. And with the event PR, it's once again 14.3 meters. So that's same as Red Bull Racing. So it's gonna be a competitive car. You know, as I said, the grip is where it slips behind, because as you can see, the base PR grip is 2.94 G, maxes out at 3.35. So you know, it's kind of that's its weakness, right? And then with the event PR, you get 3.23 G, which is kind of on the lower grip side. Not the lowest, but lower grip side of the spectrum for 2024 season. And yeah, so Aston Martin and the Racing Bulls, I think we went past that one. Where are you? That was the first one, wasn't it? Yes, Visa Cash App. What a name. RB Formula One team. This used to be AlphaTauri, right? So anyway, so same PR as Aston Martin, but you know, it doesn't really stand out in front of Aston Martin across the board. Like the top speed starts out 1 kph slower, 314 kph. But you know, once you put upgrades on for the event, it's gonna match Aston Martin at 366 kph. And when you max it out, 388 kph. So that matches Aston Martin. As I said, kind of middle of the road. That also, the maxed out top speed is also same as Mercedes, just so you know. And then the acceleration wise, it starts out at 2.02 and maxes out at 1.75 seconds. So that is not bad. That's second best acceleration in the group, in the entire group, matching that of Ferrari. And with the event PR, you are at 1.83 seconds. So that's same as identical to Ferrari. So not bad. Braking distance, however, is not anything to write home about. It starts out at one of the longer braking distance of 16.2 meters here. And as you put more upgrades on with the event PR, you bring it down to 14.9 meters. So still, you know, not the best. And when you max it out, 14.3 meters. So it's fine. And then grip, it's starting out at 2.93 G. So ever so slightly, like 0.01 G lower than Aston Martin. But when you max it out, it actually comes out ahead of Aston Martin at 3.36 G. So that's 0.01 G higher than Aston Martin. But in terms of the event PR, you're going to match Aston Martin at 3.23 G. So yeah, they're comparable, but perhaps Aston Martin coming out slightly ahead. But in the game, PR essentially identical. Base PR 115.7, maxes out at 136.6, both cars. And with the event PR requirement, they're going to be both at 130.6. So there's that. And then let's talk about some of the lower tier teams. So we got Alpine, Haas, Kicksober, and Williams Racing. All right. So let's see. Sure. No, let's go to Haas or Alpine. Is that the last one? No, Williams is the last one. Right. Where are you? I'm looking for Alpine. Was it? There we go. All right. So, what's its strength? Out of all the specs, the braking distance is not the worst. It's kind of middle of the road. Starts out at 16.2 meters. With the event PR, you can bring it down to 14.7 meters. So that's not bad. Better than, let's say, the likes of AlphaTauri or Visa Cash App RB Formula One team. Racing Bulls. There. Right? And when you max it out, it does come down to 14 meters. So braking distance wise, Haas and Alpine, they kind of share similar specs, especially once you have the upgrades on stock. Without any upgrades, Haas does have longer braking distance, like 16.5 meters versus 16.2 for Alpine. Now, comparing those two cars, Alpine and Haas, because they essentially share the PR, although the base PR, Alpine comes out 0.1 PR higher than the Haas, but once you max it out, or once you start putting the upgrades on to complete these events, they're going to be same, right? So both are maxing out at 136.5, and for the events, you will be at 130.5. And as I said, braking distance comparable. Top speed also comparable, even though when you're starting out, Haas starts out just 1 kph lower at 314 compared to Alpine, which is, as you can see, starting at 315 kph. But once you start putting the upgrades on to complete these events, you're going to both end up at 365 kph. And once you max out the top speed, they're both going to be topping out at 386 kph, which is on the lower top speed spectrum of the 2024 season. In fact, it's the second slowest cars. And acceleration, Haas does come out ever so slightly ahead. When you max it out, they're both at 1.76 seconds. So they're on the slower side of things. In fact, 1.76 seconds is the slowest when all these cars are maxed out. So acceleration, not exactly anything to write home about in this group. They're faster cars, basically. But with the event PR, Haas is going to have ever so slightly 1/100th of a second faster acceleration than Alpine. So Alpine gets up to or gets down to 1.85 seconds compared to Haas at 1.84 seconds. As I said, braking distance, we already covered that. For the event, I mean, they're going to be more or less identical, even though they start off slightly different. And the grip, Alpine has better grip than Haas across the board. It starts out ever so slightly better, 0.01 G better than MoneyGram, right? The MoneyGram, that is Haas, right? So Alpine starting out at 2.94 G compared to 2.93 G for the Haas. And that kind of keeps up when you're putting the upgrades on to complete the event, because Alpine will go up to 3.23 G versus Haas is going to be at 3.22 G. But when you max out the upgrades on the grip, they're both going to be at 3.35 G. So yeah, 3.35 G is, it's not the worst. I mean, yeah. I mean, who's got the worst grip in the? Actually, you know what? 3.35 G is the lowest grip in the in 2024 season. I just was looking at the specs in front of me, and I was like, oh, you know what? Aston Martin also has the graces that lowest grip when it's maxed out. 3.35 G. It's just that for the event PR, the Haas, Kicksober, Williams are all coming in ever so slightly lower at 3.22 G, right? So, yeah, so that is the story of Alpine. And, I mean, the other teams at this point, you know, they're just going to have the, you know, sort of a bottom specs, right? I don't know if I need to necessarily go over, but overall, what this translates to the game playing for racing, right, is that the lower spec cars just less forgiving. You have to be more precise to essentially overcome the shortcomings of the cars, versus the faster cars. They're more forgiving because the car does more work for you, right? So in terms of tackling the 2024 Grand Prix events, tougher circuits, try to reserve the better cars for tougher circuit events like Singapore. As I said earlier, Ferrari perhaps would be a good candidate to run at Singapore, or even like perhaps Aston Martin won't be too bad. Or, I mean, if you're want more challenge, right? I mean, if you really want to maximize your challenge, run Kicksober at Singapore and run Williams at Monaco, assuming that we're going to get Monaco, right? But yeah, so that would be my recommendation if you're new to the game and you're like just kind of like, which car should I choose? You know, so for like Italian Grand Prix, it's gonna be pretty straightforward. I mean, you know, it's a lot of straight path that you just gotta go faster than the next guy, right? So top speed definitely would help, but it's not, you know, as difficult, you know. So really, only strategy I guess perhaps you need are gonna be just how to tackle Monaco and Singapore, because I feel like all the other circuits are relatively evenly spread out. I cannot think of any one that sticks out more than others, other than like Spa having, you know, like top speed is gonna help, along with the Monza. You know, like if you think about like Silverstone or Suzuka or Catalunya, they're pretty all similar, well balanced circuits. Perhaps Suzuka top speed is nice to have, since that western straight over the bridge is pretty long. So, you know, you can really take advantage of having the top speed higher, you know, to take advantage of that. But otherwise, I think, you know, most of those circuits are going to be relatively comparable. At least that's my take for now. Anyway, that will do it for this video. So hopefully the information in the video has helped you strategize. If not, I'm sorry, wasted your time. All right, so I'll see you guys on the racetrack. Keep on racing. Take care.